When Dahlia DiPolito decided to have her husband killed, she thought it would be clean, quiet, and untraceable. What she didn't know was that the man she hired was working with the police. And everything, every word, every smile, every lie, was caught on camera. Palm Beach County, Florida. Summer of 2009. The sun was high, the streets quiet, and at first glance, everything looked ordinary. But inside a local police station, a sting operation was unfolding that would captivate the country and change 2 lives forever. Her name was Dahlia DiPolito. She was 26, striking, poised, and married to a man named Michael DiPolito, a 38-year-old with a criminal past and a second chance at life. The couple had been married for only 6 months. But behind the scenes, Dahlia was planning something far more permanent than divorce. She wanted him dead. The story begins when Dahlia approaches a man she believes can help her. A hitman. She tells him she wants her husband gone. Quietly. Permanently. She offers cash. She lays out her reasons. She's unhappy, he's abusive, she wants out. But what Dahlia doesn't know is that this so-called hitman is actually an undercover officer. And from the moment she says the words, the entire operation becomes a setup. The Boynton Beach Police Department quickly realizes this isn't just a threat. It's a made-for-TV sting. They bring in their camera crew, set up microphones, and let Dahlia keep talking. What she says is cold, calculated, chilling. She insists she's 5,000% sure she wants her husband dead. She lays out the schedule. She gives her address. She discusses timing. She even jokes that she'll be at the gym when it happens, so she has an alibi. The officers agree to stage a fake crime scene. To do it right, they need Dahlia to believe it's real, so they go all in. They tell her to expect a phone call. Then, on the morning of August 5, 2009, while she's at the gym, officers call her. There's been an incident. She rushes home to find yellow tape, police cars, and detectives waiting. Bodycam footage shows Dahlia sobbing, falling to the ground, asking, "Is he dead?" Her performance is Oscar-worthy. Except it's all fake. Michael DiPolito is alive, and watching from inside the police station. He's just been told that his wife tried to have him killed. At first, he doesn't believe it. "There's no way," he says. "You're messing with me." But then they show him the footage, the meetings, the planning, her smiling as she describes how she wants it done. And the only question left is, why? That's where this story twists. Michael wasn't a perfect man. He had a rap sheet, fraud, probation violations. He'd built a new life after prison, started a business, and thought he'd found a fresh start with Dahlia. But now, he was the target of a murder-for-hire plot, one that was unfolding in real time and being recorded for the world to see. The case exploded in the media. Dahlia was arrested on the spot. The footage was released publicly. Talk shows picked it up. True crime shows. News segments. Everyone had an opinion. Was she serious? Was it a setup? Could someone really be that cold? But the cameras didn't lie. Everything was recorded. From the first meeting with the undercover officer to the final moment she asked for confirmation that her husband was gone, the evidence was overwhelming. But Dahlia pled not guilty. Her defense? It was all part of a plan, a staged drama. She and Michael were trying to create content to help his probation. Or maybe they were trying to get famous. The story didn't hold up. What did hold up were the tapes. The cold, clear, unflinching videos where Dahlia plotted a murder as casually as she might order lunch. And the jury? They were watching too. Gano Final Dueda won. The footage stunned the courtroom. But it was nothing compared to what would come next, when the case turned from a murder plot into a battle for control of the narrative. A trial by media. A performance in and out of court. And one question that still lingers. Was Dalia Dippolito a cold-blooded mastermind? Or just playing a role too well? With the footage in hand and Dalia Dippolito in custody, the Boynton Beach Police Department had more than just a case. They had a national headline. But before the trial began, the behind-the-scenes details of how the setup unfolded revealed just how calculated the sting had been, and how confident Dalia had become. After the initial meeting where Dalia tried to hire a hitman, the police knew they had to get her on tape. Clearly, undeniably. That's when they brought in Cops, the reality TV show that was filming with the department at the time. The producers were granted permission to film the sting. With microphones planted, cameras hidden, and undercover detectives briefed, everything was set. Dalia's second meeting with the undercover officer was even more direct. She didn't flinch. She didn't whisper. She spelled it all out. She handed over a photo of Michael, his schedule, and described in chilling detail how she wanted the murder to happen. What stands out in the footage is Dalia's composure. She smiles. She jokes. She shows no hesitation. "Are you sure you want to do this?" the officer asked. "I'm 5,000% sure," she replied without blinking. The officer even gives her one more chance to back out. "Because once we start, there's no turning back." She nods. "I know." The stage was set. On the morning of August 5th, as planned, Dalia left for the gym. Police used that window to prepare the fake crime scene. They moved quickly. Officers placed crime scene tape, parked police cruisers out front, and prepped their script. When Dalia returned, a detective met her outside. "There's been an incident," he said. "Your husband's been killed." Bodycam footage shows Dalia erupting into tears, collapsing onto the hood of a police cruiser. Her performance was intense, so intense that some viewers wondered if she was really heartbroken. But inside the police station, Michael Dippolito was watching in disbelief. Minutes later, Dalia was brought in for questioning, and that's when her story began to unravel. She denied everything. She said she didn't know anyone, didn't meet with a hitman, didn't say anything about murder. But the detectives were already queuing up the video. When they told her they had it all on tape, her face changed. Still, she insisted she had done nothing wrong. Her lawyer later claimed the entire event had been staged, that Dalia and Michael were working on a YouTube prank series, that the videos were part of an elaborate joke to gain internet fame and possibly help Michael get off probation. But if it was a prank, no one was laughing. The footage was damning. The tone, the words, the planning, none of it looked like a joke. And the jury, when the time came, would be shown every second. Meanwhile, Michael was left to reckon with a darker truth. His wife, the woman he had trusted with his second chance, had orchestrated his murder while living under the same roof. He later admitted he felt set up emotionally, like she had chosen him specifically to exploit his background and vulnerability. And yet, even after the fake hit and her arrest, he visited her in jail. He took her calls. He told reporters he was confused, heartbroken, unsure of what to believe. That emotional whiplash would become a key point of contention in court. But before the trial, the media frenzy exploded. News stations ran the footage on repeat. The phrase, 5,000% sure, became a meme. Dalia's name trended nationwide. Her mugshot circulated, and with each broadcast, public opinion hardened. People weren't just interested, they were obsessed. Was she a manipulative femme fatale, or an aspiring influencer caught in her own act? Was it murder for hire, or reality TV gone wrong? By the time the trial began, the courtroom was packed. Every outlet wanted a seat. Every viewer had a theory, and the prosecution was ready to let the tapes do the talking. But what no one expected was what Dahlia's defense team would do next. Gancho final do Otto 2, smiley face. They weren't going to deny the footage. They were going to explain it. Because in the next act, Dahlia's team would flip the script and try to convince the jury that what looked like a crime was all just an act. The courtroom was packed. Media outlets lined the walls. Cameras clicked with every movement, and at the center of it all stood Dahlia Dippolito, dressed carefully, composed, and still claiming she was innocent. The prosecution opened with what they knew would land hard. The video. In full display for the jury, the infamous footage rolled. Dahlia's voice filled the room. "I'm 5,000% sure." The tone was casual. Her smile, confident. The plan, unmistakable. The courtroom was silent, riveted by the coldness of it. Then came the twist. Dahlia's defense attorney stood up and flipped the narrative. According to him, everything was staged. Yes, the footage was real. Yes, Dahlia said those things. But it wasn't what it seemed. He argued that Dahlia and Michael had a shared plan, one designed to gain attention, maybe even fame, by crafting a fake murder plot for a TV pitch or internet stunt. He claimed the police had misunderstood everything, and that Dahlia had played along because she thought it was part of a script. It was a bold defense. But it wasn't enough. Michael Dippolito took the stand. He looked tense, uncomfortable, but composed. When asked about the supposed plan, he said there was none. He denied being part of any scheme to fake his own murder. And more than that, he said Dahlia had tried to poison him before. That allegation changed the mood. Michael described how, months prior to the sting, he had begun feeling ill after drinking tea Dahlia had made for him. Tests later revealed high levels of a substance inconsistent with his prescriptions. It wasn't conclusive, but it was enough to suggest that this wasn't the first time Dahlia had tried something drastic. The jury heard about other strange behavior. How Dahlia had anonymously contacted Michael's probation officer in an attempt to have him sent back to prison. How she had tried to convince neighbors that he was dangerous. She appeared, in the prosecution's words, to be clearing the path for his removal, legally or otherwise. But the defense kept fighting. They pointed out inconsistencies. Why would someone plotting a murder allow herself to be recorded so clearly? Why wouldn't she cover her face? Why speak so openly to a stranger? They argued that it was a performance. A bad one, but still just a performance. And in the first trial, it almost worked. The jury deliberated for hours, then days. Tensions rose. And eventually, the verdict came in, a mistrial. The jury couldn't reach a unanimous decision. It was a shocking result. But it wasn't the end. The prosecution regrouped. And in 2017, 8 years after the original incident, Dahlia was retried. This time, they added context. They brought in more witnesses. They emphasized Michael's testimony. They played the footage again, but slower, more deliberately. They painted Dahlia as not just manipulative, but dangerous. The second jury didn't need as long. They found her guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder. Dahlia was sentenced to 16 years in prison. The judge was clear. The evidence spoke for itself. The videos, the planning, the consistency. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't performance art. It was a murder plot. The media frenzy reignited. Talk shows revisited the footage. YouTubers analyzed the body language. True crime podcasts unpacked the case. And one phrase, 5,000% sure, became forever linked to the face of Dolia DiPolito. Gancho final do Otto. Pet smiley. But the question remained, how did a woman go from newlywed to national villain in just 6 months? In the next act, we look at what drove her, from the lies to the manipulation to the obsession with control. Because when it comes to Dolia DiPolito, it was never just about money. It was about power. To understand what drove Dolia DiPolito, you have to look beneath the surface. Her case wasn't just about hiring a hitman. It was about control. Control over her life, over her image, over Michael, and ultimately, over the story itself. Dolia wasn't someone lost in rage. She didn't scream. She didn't panic. What made her dangerous was how calm she was in the middle of chaos. That calmness, investigators said, wasn't confidence. It was calculation. Before the sting operation, there were already signs of manipulation. She convinced Michael to transfer their home into her name. She took control of their finances. She made anonymous calls to his probation officer, trying to get him violated and sent back to prison. She'd even suggested to neighbors that Michael was dangerous, planting seeds to discredit him before anything happened. This wasn't impulsive. It was planned. And according to prosecutors, it was part of a broader strategy to erase Michael from her life without going through the hassle of divorce. If he violated parole, he'd go away. If not, well, she had other options. Michael wasn't perfect, but he was a target, and Dolia knew how to present herself as the opposite. Sweet, stylish, polished. To the public, she looked like a woman wronged, but the evidence said otherwise. Even after her arrest, Dolia tried to reshape the narrative. In phone calls from jail, she asked her mother to reach out to media outlets. She suggested they tell their side of the story. She coached her mother on what to say. It wasn't about truth. It was about image. In her interviews, Dolia painted herself as misunderstood. She claimed she never wanted Michael dead, that she was playing along, that she was framed. She accused the police of manipulating the footage, of editing the tape to make her look guilty. But the tapes didn't lie, and neither did the people around her. Her ex-boyfriends, friends, even Michael himself. Many spoke of Dolia's pattern of deceit, how she could twist reality, turn situations upside down, how she made people doubt what they saw with their own eyes. That power, the power to manipulate, was her weapon. Not a gun, not a knife, but charm and confusion. And when it no longer worked, she unraveled. Her post-trial interviews were a mix of denial and deflection. She cried on cue, claimed unfair treatment, suggested conspiracies. But none of it changed the outcome. What it did reveal, though, was a woman terrified of losing control. Dolia's sentence, 16 years, wasn't just about justice. It was about making a statement. That image doesn't override action. That charm doesn't cancel out intent. And that planning someone's death, on camera, isn't something you can edit your way out of. Her appeals failed. Her requests for early release were denied. And in 2023, she remains behind bars, still fighting to reshape her story from the inside. Gancho final do Otto 4, smiley face. But the real legacy of the Dolia DiPolito case isn't just the footage or the courtroom drama. It's the lesson about how far someone will go to maintain control, and how the truth, when recorded, becomes impossible to escape. In the final act, we reflect on the fallout, the media, the justice system, and the lives left behind. Because not every story of attempted murder ends in death. Sometimes, it ends in a lesson that's even harder to forget. Years after the plot was exposed, the case of Dolya DiPolito remains one of the most surreal and unforgettable crimes ever caught on camera. It wasn't just a murder-for-hire scheme. It was a cautionary tale about image, performance, and the consequences of underestimating documentation in the digital age. By the time her final sentencing came down, Dolya had become a symbol, not just of manipulation or deceit, but of how media, justice, and performance can collide in a courtroom. Unlike most criminal cases, Dolya didn't just leave behind a paper trail. She left a video legacy, a living, breathing digital record of her own undoing. Every word, every glance, every decision was preserved, not as testimony, but as evidence. And that evidence spoke louder than any argument ever could. After being found guilty of solicitation to commit murder, Dolya was sentenced to 16 years in prison. Her attorneys filed multiple appeals, claiming that the media attention had tainted the jury, that the presence of the reality show cops undermined the integrity of the investigation, and that the spectacle had overshadowed the facts. But the courts disagreed. The video was clear, the words unmistakable, and the truth. It didn't need editing. Michael DiPolito, the man she had targeted, struggled with the aftermath. He wasn't killed, but his life was fractured. In interviews, he described the betrayal as something out of a nightmare, a staged execution ordered by the person he trusted most. He never asked to be famous, but his face became part of the story, replayed over and over again as the man who walked back into his own life after being told he was dead. The emotional fallout went far beyond what headlines could capture. Law enforcement agencies began using the case as a model for undercover operations. The coordination between the Boynton Beach Police Department and the reality show raised questions, but it also resulted in airtight evidence. It was a rare moment where justice and media intersected with precision. But that doesn't mean the questions stopped. Should law enforcement allow reality TV to film active stings? Can a person get a fair trial when their crime goes viral? Those questions remain unanswered. And Dolya? She never stopped trying to reshape the narrative. From prison, she's given interviews insisting that she was misunderstood, that the footage was taken out of context, that the whole thing was a setup. She claims she was playing a role, caught in something bigger than herself. But even behind bars, the performance continues. What Dolya didn't count on was the permanence of her story. In a world where videos never disappear, where screenshots are forever, her words became her prison, just as much as the sentence itself. The legacy of this case isn't just a warning about manipulation. It's a warning about visibility. In the digital age, you don't get to choose how the world sees you, especially when the evidence plays on loop. Dolya DiPolito wanted control over her life, over her husband, over the narrative. What she got was a mirror, and it showed everything.